and Andrea. Andrea, how should I pronounce your name?
Hi, Ed. Thank you so much for having me. It's Andrea Montano.
Andrea, and you're in Bucharest, Romania. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
What time is it there?
It's 6 p.m.
6 p.m. So it's 10 hours. Yeah. And, or is it 9 hours difference from here? Let's see. And Joseph, you're in Dublin, which is 8 hours from here.
That's
Welcome.
correct. Absolutely. Thank you, Ed.
And Ken Lloyd in LA, my time. Thank you so much for your time today. Uh, this is a conversation in the global meeting room. This what I affectionately call this screen here, a safe place to exchange ideas, to be introduced to people, or reintroduced as well, and to continue in relationship building and strengthening relationships and enlarging the platform for rapport and understanding. These are really troubled times for many people, not just in the US, but in many other places. So this room has turned out to be a go-to place for Ken. You've been on so many shows. Thank you very much for being involved. Joseph, the Golden Bridge episode that we recorded a couple of months ago is getting so many eyeballs through our, well, I put it out there almost daily in some message capacity. Uh, there's so much more to that. And I'd like you to perhaps comment a little bit on the Golden Bridge, the exit ramp idea, the concept, and particularly in light of craziness and the bitterness that is so evident today across the news, legitimate news, not fake news, and not antagonistic news. In Bucharest, is it calm or is it confusing like it is here in the US at this time?
Well, Edwin, if I may start with a joke, it's the peak hour for everyone to come back home from the office. So I wouldn't really say that it's a calm, let's say, time. But well, we are a let's say global hub, and we kind of sense everything that is happening, not only in Europe but also in general in other countries. So, of course, we may get an impact from anything that is, let's say, US related as well, not in such a broader scope, but yeah, we do see things that are happening and moving in all sorts of directions.
Joseph?
There are always undercurrents anyway, Ed, and I think it's a matter of personal choice whether we allow ourselves to get caught up in the undercurrents. That's more and more what I find. I'm obviously not new to this planet. I've been obviously clearly I'm not a teenager. I've been around for a while, as some of us have, and I've had time to take learn a few lessons and take stock. And so much of it really, to me, comes down to personal values. We've seen so much instability over the last number of years. It seems to be increasing, but it does come back to personal values and personal choice and clear decisions. What do I value? What are my values? Am I living them? And for me, you referred earlier to the Golden Bridge, and that resonates so strongly for me, which is why I was happy to share it. Um, the original quote comes from the ancient Chinese military classic, The Art of War by the General Sun Tzu, and it's basically it says always create a golden bridge on which your enemies can retreat. But I like to broaden it out from that because we can have personal conflicts in whether it's family, friends, social conflicts, etc., etc. But it comes back to me about listening with genuine curiosity, listening with respect, listening from a place of inner stability. And once people feel listened to, feel heard, it takes a lot of the steam, a lot of the temperature out of the room, out of the engagement. And once we create that space, then we can have constructive dialogue, assuming people are willing, of course. But even if people are not willing, once we've at least taken the steam out of the situation, it allows both of us to retreat across the Golden Bridge, where we're not in a place of conflict. We can agree to disagree, and we can possibly create the potential for future engagement.
Yeah.
Oh, the idea and image of the Golden Bridge, I think, is wonderful because it's easy to tell people about the importance of communicating and listening, but you put a visual to it, and it's much easier to internalize and to picture it in various situations. For me, right along with Joseph's comments, yeah, it's certainly a way for those who disagree or feel like retreating can do so. The Golden Bridge is inviting, opening the door to people. I want to meet you. I want to listen to you. I want to hear you. I want to try to understand what you're saying, what you're feeling. So it really is a way that we can interact so much more productively. And think if our world today if our world leaders were operating more on the concept of a golden bridge, instead of just coming out harshly against one project or another, or making claims that come from absolutely no basis. That's the opposite. That's really putting up a wall instead of a bridge. And I think if we can concentrate on building bridges, maintaining bridges, and truly acting with honesty and empathy and understanding, we can all do a lot better. But at the same time, I agree with Joseph. There are things that are out of our hands. And if we want to really stop and think about them, we can make ourselves a little crazy. So you have to have some perspective on that as well. Seize the day. And I might have mentioned I was at a religious service. I heard such an interesting quote. You probably heard it. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. And that's why they call it the present. And that resonated with me in terms of a lot of what's going on and how we're trying to deal with it.
Andreea.
I will keep that for the future, Ken, because I really love that saying. But it's true. It's in terms of if I can make a parallel in terms of course, building bridges for the future, even though the present is the day. But in terms of personal boundaries, because when it comes to our own boundaries and our own resilience and our own limits, it's very, very important to know how to draw that line. Because what may be a golden bridge for our future endeavor or our future rapport is not really something that can help me grow as an individual. Because I don't know, you stepped out of my or in my comfort zone and my boundary is no longer there. So it's also about resilience and it's also about respect. And in this sort of interactions, or actually in any sort of interaction, not only when it comes to business interactions or political sides, it's important to consider what makes a safe place for everyone to communicate, to exchange anything from information to potential collaboration. So, yeah.
I love your words, a safe place. I That's a marketing phrase that I'm using to help promote new people to join us in the coming days. The global meeting room is a safe place for business introductions and for idea exchange from people who are different from each other by occupation, by location, by culture, by generation, perhaps. All of that's really important when you're negotiating, isn't that right, Joseph? I'm talking platitudes, perhaps, but what I'm trying to get out of your way here and get you involved to be the leader in negotiation. A lot of it has to do with listening and then judging how to convey that you're listening. And that what brings more rapport then, as opposed to stone silence. Joseph?
Yes, absolutely, Ed. And a negotiation or negotiation can be defined as a conversation or series of conversations, which is more likely aimed at, which can be between two or more parties aimed at finding an agreement to do something, sell something, develop something. Um, that's a very broad generalization, but in essence, that's what it is. And people can come from so many different perspectives. There are those who will come from a very dominant personality trait or series of traits where they just want to win regardless of the cost. There are those who go in and they're frequently very fearful and they're always projecting the worst case scenario. And I've seen that. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's seen that. And then there are those who go in and they're just purely transactional, where it's only about the detail and personality and personal feelings and emotion don't come into it at all. Ken mentioned empathy there a few moments ago. Empathy doesn't come into it. So there are those who it's just about business and whatever happens to the people is irrelevant. It's not where I'm coming from, because where I'm coming from is very much about building relationship. And it's not just about this particular negotiation, whatever our series of negotiations, whatever it might be. It's about creating potential for the future. So not just for this relationship, but potentially opening doors for future relationships to come from that. Because not only is it involving the people who are directly engaged, but it also potentially involves the people we know. And we can expand. I have a few slides. The last one kind of touches on that point, because so often we can go into a negotiation thinking this is what it's about, and we can be kind of blinkered in terms of there's only this possibility, there's only this little factor that we're negotiating about, but we often lack the vision to see what could be beyond that.
I welcome you to use my screen share and upload slides.
Thank you. Thank you. I've just got a few slides for today, and coming very much from my personal and professional experience and skill set. There we go. So in terms of me as a facial profiler and body language expert, I'm paying attention to what people aren't saying as much as what they are saying. And I'm paying attention to how they're saying it. So I'm listening and I'm observing. And the slides I'm showing today relate very much to the visuals, relate to body language. And what I'm particularly looking for is what poker players would call tells or leaks. So I'm paying attention for what people are doing when the pressure's on that they wouldn't normally do. So ideally, before going into a negotiation, or before going into a meeting of any significance, I'll have some small talk where we're just chatting over a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and I'm observing just how people normally hold themselves, how people normally speak, the gestures they make. And then when it comes to the actual negotiation and the pressure's on, and it comes to critical points in the discussion, what are people doing? Women very frequently touch this area, the throat, and this area, the top of the sternum, known as the suprasternal notch. It's very commonly an area that women touch when they're feeling nervous or uncertain for whatever reason. It doesn't tell you why they're feeling uncertain, but for whatever reason they do. Men are probably more likely to either stroke their chin or touch their watch or their jewelry. I haven't come across any explanation why it happens, but they're sort of more gender specific gestures that people tend to make. But again, it comes back to what people do when there's something at stake that they wouldn't normally do. And in observing any of these factors, firstly, in terms of body language, there's no one single factor that's absolutely definitive. So you're looking for a variety, you're looking for what we call a cluster. But also when I'm looking at them, I'm very conscious that any of these things, any of the skills I train or present to people can be used for manipulation purposes. I'm very aware of that. It's not where I'm coming from. I'm just looking to notice where people are feeling a little bit stressed or a little bit under strain so that I can understand better. And when I see these signs, it makes me curious. So that's when I'm inclined to ask questions. It looks like you're a little uncertain here.
Let me jump in and ask a quickie. Uh, what is a sign? What would be a sign for, say, me, a guy, um, that I'm at ease?
That you're at ease.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that you're not doing anything in particular. Like I'm observing Ken here, for example, and Ken isn't showing any particular facial expression. He's not moving around. He's not fidgeting. He's just sitting there quite calmly. So not to put you on the under the spotlight there, Ken, but you're an example of somebody sitting there at ease. I'm using you as an example for Ed to look at. So and if it's a serious negotiation and I see somebody with a broad smile, that raises a question for me. Are they feeling they've gained an advantage, or are they looking to present the image of being overconfident?
And that in itself is a mask.
It can be, absolutely, absolutely. And if they're smiling, I'm checking whether it's just their mouth or their eyes as well. If their eyes are smiling, it's a genuine smile. So I'm looking, okay, what's happened now? What is being discussed right now that makes them feel happy and confident? So I'm paying a lot of attention to changes in facial expression, changes in posture, changes in movement and gesture, changes in tonality. Even here where we're only seeing the head or the upper chest, I'm paying attention to breathing patterns. So all of those things can be quite revealing. Um, just move it here. Now, if I saw this actual image in a negotiation, I'd be quite concerned because it's obviously an image of somebody being distressed. But we can pick up on anxiety in facial features very easily as well. This joint here that moves that allows the lower jaw to move. When I move it like that, if you touch your own face there, you'll feel there's a hinge. And this is the most powerful joint in the human body. It's the temporomandibular joint, or TMJ. And it actually holds more pressure than you find in a pneumatic tire. So it's a very powerful joint. But when people are feeling stressed, and particularly if they're feeling uptight, the jaw will tend to become quite strained. I was a craniosacral therapist in the past, and I used to treat a lot of disorders here, and a lot of them were actually stemmed from emotional stress, particularly anger and irritation. So I'm paying attention to what's happening with the jaw, and if I notice this area of the face becoming tighter, I know somebody's feeling really quite wound up. And I will often hear it then in the voice, that the voice kind of becomes more strained and stressed. So again, it tells me there's something that is being discussed right now that is causing them major tension for whatever reason. It doesn't give me a reason, but it tells me that there's something that they're really feeling very, very tense about. A couple of other visual indicators of the face that will indicate somebody's feeling stress in the moment are if the blink rate suddenly starts to speed up. You'll notice that particularly the upper eyelid really starts to flicker quite fast like that. Again, tells you they're really feeling stress in the moment. Or if somebody starts chewing their lip, it could be their upper lip or their lower lip. It tells you they're uncertain. They may be speaking, but either they're not convinced by what they're saying, or there's just some significant point of uncertainty there that, again, is worth investigating. It's not telling you the what, it's just telling you that there is something going on in the moment, and it's something of significance and worth paying attention to. We may not see the hands, obviously, if we're on screen like this, but in a situation where we're meeting person to person or face to face, and we can see the hands, that's very, very helpful. When we meet somebody in person, the first thing we are, as humans, notice is the hands. And this goes back to our ancient ancestry. When our earliest ancestors were there, they lived in small groups. And they had to know if a stranger were approaching, they had to know instantly whether that person were friend or foe. And that was determined by whether the hands were visible and whether they were holding something. So when we meet somebody in person, the first thing we notice, whether we're conscious of it or not, is the hands. Are they visible? And if they're not visible, are they a threat? And that goes on in the back of our mind. Are they possibly a threat? So if you are meeting in person and it's a meeting of significance, please make sure your hands are visible. And ideally, if your hands are visible and on the table, have them palm upwards. Because if the hands are palm down, it gives the indication you're holding on, you're feeling tense. And if you see somebody with their hands clasped, now that's an AI image, but if you see their hands clasped and they're sort of squeezing them and they're tight like that, again, it's an indication of tension. You will see very often in meetings like that, you will see this, what's called steepling. And many people now do it deliberately because it's been said that it's a gesture which signifies authority. But if I see somebody doing it, I'm paying attention to what the rest of what's going on, because so many people have read or heard that it's an indication of authority and leadership. It depends. So it depends on what else is going on. And again, you mentioned the word mask, Ed. So often people are wearing a mask and looking to project authority or project confidence, or in some cases project incompetence, because that can also be a tactic. Many of us will be familiar with Lieutenant Columbo from the TV series, the much-loved TV series of many years ago. And he always projected that image of a guy who didn't really know what he was about. And just at the end of each episode, he would say, just one more thing, and then he would nail the criminal. And it's a tactic used in negotiation as well, to appear incompetent and to lull people into a false sense of security. So I'm paying attention to a whole variety of things. So it's like I said at the beginning, it's never just one single gesture, one single movement, or one single thing. It's paying attention to the whole picture. And a lot of that comes back to not just the listening and the observation, but being relaxed myself and making sure I go into the room in a relaxed state so that I'm using my body as a receiver of information. And what's my body telling me about the other person and what their body is transmitting, because our bodies are continually transmitting and receiving. So is my body attuned to when they're relaxed or otherwise? We talk, in English, we talk about gut feeling. And certainly we know the gut is a major center of neuron activity. And the gut actually sends more signals up to the brain here than vice versa. So the gut receives a lot of information if we're paying attention. So it's combining. I know I've used the Chinese symbol for listening in a previous presentation, where it's the eyes, it's the ears, the eyes, the heart, and the mind all working together, and we can effectively include the gut in that. So all of our senses really will be on alert. And again, it's not about manipulation. It can be for some people, obviously, we have to be realistic about that. But if we're looking again to build bridges and build connections and develop relationships, then it's using the information presented by the various gestures, movements, changes in tone, tonality, facial expression, etc., to allow us to demonstrate curiosity and empathy, to notice that there is something significant going on for the other person or the other people, and pay attention to that and be respectful.
And can I jump in here and ask you an unplanned question? In your background, Ken, when you were in corporate and you were having a feedback, a performance review session with an employee or group, how would you, in that case, get them to try to relax right up front?
Sure. It's obviously it is not a negotiation, and that's a mistake that some managers make. We're going to go and negotiate your ratings, negotiate everything that's going on. Actually, they have them relax in those sessions. If you're doing the annual appraisal, you haven't really done this in a year, it's going to be very difficult. If you're engaging in continuous feedback, regular discussions with your employees about how they're doing, either every week or every other week, scheduled, and we're talking about it, and it's not a one-way authoritarian, just here's what you've done right and wrong, but bona fide two-way conversation, building bridges, understanding, focusing on coaching and development. The individual who is one of your team members knows that you are open, receptive, honest, empathetic. So it's not like you have to come in and calm them down. But if you've let that evaluation go and now it's out of the blue and here it is, it's going to be difficult no matter what. They're nervous about it. They've tried to gather stuff from 10 months ago, and you're there with a bunch of notes. It's an unnecessarily stressful situation. So in this case, yeah, you want to be open and honest and candid and empathetic. And at the same time, you want to set a structure that prevents a lot of the barriers that are easily built into interaction with employees, one of which is by definition an annual appraisal. It just sets the stage for mainly difficult discussions, dreaded by employees and dreaded by their managers.
Andreea, when you do coaching, it's up close and personal, isn't it?
It can be. Actually, it can be either, online or in person. I prefer the face-to-face interaction. It's always a better option to kind of listen holistically to everything that is happening, not only to what the client is saying verbally, but also similar to what Joseph was saying. In coaching, we call that listening for potential, and it's related to us being focused enough on the different gestures or mimics of the client, so we can understand if maybe we triggered something that can be a potential further discussion. It can be either something that the client enjoyed so much to describe and to talk about, or it can be something that should be avoided for now, and potentially it's a difficult conversation for later on. Of course, it's always about permission. So you can either continue the flow of the initial discussion, or you can just chime in for a second and I don't know, ask the client if they want to speak more about what just happened or what just triggered in them for a smile or for I don't know, let's say a gesture for avoidance. But thinking about what Ken said about the final appraisal, I think it's fair to have a constant feedback throughout the year, because it's just, or at least it should be something that comes natural in a conversation with your manager, not something that is, I don't know, a one-time event for the end of the year, and someone can look at that as a potential, I don't know, a negative feedback or a negative a meeting. And the consistent feedback that gets genuine, and it can be constructive. It's always to choose between a one-time discussion and something that can be improved throughout the year. And the final appraisal, it's just a closure of what we achieved last year. It doesn't need to be the final discussion or the final level of the game.
Joseph?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, in terms of feedback, it's also one of the things I learned from my father many years ago. My father was a foreman in a car assembly plant for many years, and he went across to uh, England for quite a number of training courses, and he was he was immensely respected. He was a relatively small man, as I'll be coming to this slide shortly. He was a relatively small man, but he was hugely respected. He was very firm, but very honest and very fair in his dealings with people. And one of the big things I got from him was, when it comes to feedback, always depersonalize it. This is what we're here for. This is what we're looking for you to do. And it's never about blame or criticism, because once we get into blame and criticism, people feel defensive, they withdraw, and they're likely to feel resentful. They may do what we want them to do, but they're likely to feel resentful. So it's going to impact on relationships and performance. But when we depersonalize it and talk about the purpose, talk about what has been achieved, and as Andreea said, their potential to do it better, and better in the context of the whole picture, then we can have constructive engagement, and people are much more likely to relax as well and perform better. Because again, like we've used the terms of empathy and respect here, and they're so important in terms of feedback, because and we're hearing it. I'm not really working much with Gen Z, but I'm hearing it so much that when they feel respected, their performance level automatically rises. And it's increasingly important. We're seeing it in report after report, from McKinsey, Forbes, etc., that Gen Z are looking for this quality of respect in the workplace. Unfortunately, it's still lacking in a lot of places. But when we show that respect with clarity, I'm not talking about bending over backwards and being in any way wishy-washy, because there's a job to be done. There's a purpose in coming together. But when we do that with clarity, then people will engage and people will perform.
Ken?
Oh, absolutely agreeing with all of this. When you're focusing on giving feedback, or what we call feed forward, which is coaching and guidance and helping these individuals move along on their career path, it is important, as you said, and it's an easy way to remember it, focus on performance, not personality. And that's really the approach. You're really so introverted out there. Wait, what? You're going to turn me into an extrovert? But let's talk about interaction, meeting with your team and communicating with others, things that people can actually do something with that they'd be interested in. And we're focusing not on generalizations, not on kind of, I think this is what it is, but we're focusing on factual behavior. And again, by doing it on a more regular basis, we're getting rid of this so-called recency effect. When you do an annual appraisal, someone might have been doing well for 11 months and 3.5 weeks, and then right at the end, a huge mistake, a problem, that will taint the evaluation for the whole year. That's just not fair. It's not the way to do it. It's not building, and it certainly isn't showing respect. And two key words to be effective in a leadership position are respect and trust. And that doesn't mean just to say them, but to truly apply those concepts in your dealings with your team members. And it really helps you as a leader, and it helps them to learn, develop, grow, and perform. And that's really all of the key factors we're looking for there.
Thank you. Andreea, tell us about your practice. You're a certified coach, a member of the International Coach Federation, if I said that right, ICF, and you have a specialty. Would you tell the audience about your specialty, please?
Sure. So I was really passionate about um, people in terms of their performance and their careers, and let's say in short their dreams for the future. And at some point I wanted to deep dive into the discussion of how you can reach your highest potential and how you can actually perform for what you want to achieve, if I can say in general in life, but it can also be short term. So, long story short, I ended up with a neuro leadership certification, and I wanted to understand, let's say, what is at the core of any sort of motivation. So, of course, when we think about what motivates us as an individual, we can certainly think about emotions and how our brains function. So, it's very interesting to see how you can take an individual from being motivated by a threat to being motivated by something positive that they can achieve. Um, Similar to the discussion about the feedback, it shouldn't be a threat that your manager can come at the end of the year and you may get a not necessarily a demotion in your role, but maybe you don't get the salary increase that you expected. But it should be something that gives you, certainty throughout the year that you are either in the right place and you meet your objectives, or you know what to do to improve so that the year-end discussion doesn't come as a surprise. So that should be, the main factor is always about motivation, and we need to learn how to motivate people in a positive way.
Joseph?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just trying to find a direct link to the slide here now. That's obviously an image of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I'm just using him as an example here. When I'm going into a room, I'm looking to see who's in charge of the room. Dr. King was actually a small man. He was about 5'6". Andreea, I know you're probably dealing in metric systems, so
Metric system.
apologies for not knowing the exact measurement there. But so he wasn't physically, he would not have been a dominant figure. And initially, he was a pastor in a relatively rural area. So he wasn't a man that you would have automatically said from an early age was destined to be a great national leader. But when I go into a room, I'm looking for who's actually commanding the room. And it's not about who's the loudest, who's the tallest, and it's certainly not the one who's making a lot of movement with their hands or big gestures and making a lot of noise, taking up a lot of space. It's who has presence, who's actually paying attention, who's actually observing the room, and who's tuned into the room. And we can often be caught up in looking for who is charismatic. And charismatic can be very seductive. And we can equate charisma and confidence with competence. It's why, unfortunately, we have so many people in leadership positions in politics and in business who ideally would not be anywhere near those roles, but that's perhaps a separate topic. But it's paying attention to who actually has substance, whose feet are rooted on the ground, who conveys a sense of presence without necessarily taking up all the oxygen in the room. And it may not be the CEO. It may not be the person who's nominally in charge. It could be somebody else. But it's paying attention to who it's most important to pay attention to when a negotiation or when a significant meeting actually takes place. And ideally, or most normally, what you'll find is there's an element of meeting for coffee or whatever beforehand. So it's paying attention to what's happening in the room when there's absolutely nothing at stake. And you can find it in the workplace as well. You can find it in a team where not technically everybody is on a level, but you will often find there is a leader, an unofficial leader in the group, and people gravitate towards them. And it could be male or female, but you'll often find people gravitate towards one particular person because they convey that sense of presence, of trustworthiness, and they're people who automatically not just convey respect, but draw respect from others. I just have a couple of other slides. The next one expands on the idea of respect. This is obviously a multicultural, multinational group here. It's obviously, again, it's an AI image, but we're now increasingly in multicultural settings. And I've seen it time and again where native English speakers assume that everybody else speaks the same language as them and assumes they understand the way they do, and that the language means the same thing. I had one particular personal example many years ago. It wasn't to do with business, but I was in London. I was living and studying in London at the time. And I was with a friend of mine. He was a university graduate, very, very smart guy. And we were going to get the tube, the train. And we met a French couple, and they were looking for directions. And they clearly didn't speak much French, but I spoke some French. So I started to engage with them, and we were actually making progress. But my friend, smart as he was, it didn't register with him that I was making progress, that I was actually speaking French with this couple. And he just interrupted and spoke in very loud English, as if they were stupid. And it was embarrassing and comical at the same time. But I've seen variations on that happen so often that when we're meeting people from other cultures and backgrounds, and especially if we're meeting them in their background, we need to be tuned into the nuances of how people communicate there. For example, I'm networking with quite a number of people in the Middle East at the moment, and a couple of small things. In the West, we're meeting, we go into the room, and it's normal for us to take a seat. That's just pretty much expected. But if you go into a room in the Middle East, particularly any of the Arab cultures, and you just automatically sit down, that's a black mark. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or what your role is, you wait to be invited to sit down. It's a simple sign of respect. Equally, if you're asked, would you like tea or coffee? It's normal in the West to say yes, tea or coffee, whichever your preference is. In the Middle East, say, I'm happy to accept I'm happy to go with your recommendation, whatever you favor. It's indicating respect for their choices, for their preferences, for their culture. And it's all about respect first. It's all about being attuned to their rhythms, what's normal for them. Because if you don't demonstrate that and build relationship, the meeting may progress, the meeting may continue, but the deal won't. And again, it's being attuned to what's normal and natural in the particular environment and being, again, respectful. It's just one other slide to finish off. You may all be getting an appetite. Some of you may not have had breakfast yet, or Andrea, you're probably looking forward to your dinner. Um, when we strike a deal, that's the best time to look at the next one. When everybody's happy, everybody's content. What else can we do? How can we expand the pie? We often wait until a day or two, a week later, whatever it might be, and then we come back. But it's that moment when everybody's happy and everybody's in agreement is the ideal time to ask that question. What else can we do? It raises new possibilities because when people are in that really positive state, their mind is more open and much more receptive. So that's my share. Thank you.
Brilliant. Ken, I'm sure you've had the same kinds of experiences in your career, your many careers, as a corporate leader, but also now in executive coaching. Am I phrasing that correctly?
Sure, that's just fine. It's interesting talking about language. I remember a zillion years ago riding in a train in where we were in Eastern Europe. I think it was in Yugoslavia, and there was sitting across from me a woman and apparently her mother, and I hadn't heard English spoken in quite a while. And they start talking in English. And I said, like a typical ugly American, I said, "Oh, you speak English?" And this woman looked at me with disdain and said, "Speak English? We are English." And oh, sorry, let's back up a little bit here. I think one key message is people think of these great salespeople and highly persuasive people as having the gift of gab. But actually, and having studied this, the really effective, if you will, persuaders have the gift of listening and the gift of observation. They don't come in and, as Joseph mentioned, suck all the air out of the room and take up way too much space. Rather, they're very observant, they're listening, they're understanding, and their objective is not, how can I get all this into my pocket, but how can we come together and make something work? It's more of building a partnership than I'm gonna get this over you. I'm gonna walk out, I win. That's not how the most effective, if you will, persuaders or salespeople operate. And it goes right back to Joseph's key messaging on trying to understand others. Respect is so important, but bona fide respect. It's easy to throw the words out there, but to truly respect the other people and show that in your behavior, in your words, in your actions. I mean, even coming down to not interrupting. And that's so easy. If I'm the so-called gift of gab guy, wait a minute, let me tell you more. You stop the person. That is just a total turn off. Oh, I'm not important. My thoughts aren't important. You don't care what I have to say. Great. You don't respect me. That's not going to build this agreement or potential agreement or anything else going forward. And it's always so interesting to hear the various approaches that Joseph mentions in terms of trying to truly understand other people and showing them that you understand, to build that relationship for this encounter and for future encounters. There's so much more. I mean, we think, well, it's more than words. And of course, it's more than words. If someone says to me, "Are you interested in this?" And I go, "Yes." Okay, if you write that out, yes. But what does that really mean? Is it yes? Or is it yes? Or yes? Yes? Or this? Yes? You know, any of that. It's so much more than the words we use. And the importance of the points that Andrea's mentioning and Joseph has studied all these years is super important for people truly living effectively and productively, comfortably, successfully, and dealing with others well. And it's a gift. It's not just coming in with one size fits all. Here it is, take it or leave it. Aren't I the clever one? Nope, that's not it.
Andrea?
Yeah, I guess it's when it comes to a negotiation, at least in my opinion, it's whatever makes you win. If you either have one objective at the end of the day to just close the deal, whatever you need to do to close the deal, you do it. Or as Joseph mentioned, when you make everyone, I wouldn't say really to make everyone happy, but that you have all the parties involved at ease with a decision, and everyone goes home thinking that they won something. And that final question of what else is something that really highlights the intent to continue the relationship for the future. So great point. I think, I mean, at least I haven't thought about it in that direction. But I think it's something that really shows the willingness to continue for the future, but also the fact that me being involved in that negotiation as a party, I had benefits from the relationship, and I also thought about the whole interaction as being respectful enough for me to still continue with you for the future, which is a great subtle way to show everything in 2 words basically. So yeah.
We have about 6 minutes remaining if we want to stick to the 60-minute rule. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always such a pleasure. I mean, I know I've said it before, Ed, but you have a gift for bringing together some really wonderful people and for sharing the floor and allowing people and encouraging people to speak. And you encourage people to share such great wisdom and again empathy and compassion. And it always comes across all of the, and I've watched so many of your meetings, even where I haven't been involved. And again, it's the same consistency applies all the way through. And that to me is a quality of leadership. And I'm reminded of like I've been a soccer fan since I was as so the last 200 years, it feels like at this point. But and I'm not a Manchester United fan for anybody who's engaged in soccer, but their legendary manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, was renowned not just as being successful or as a disciplinarian, but he was renowned for knowing the names and details of all the staff members in the club. He knew who the laundry people were. He knew who the people in the canteen were. He knew who their families were when they had birthdays, if somebody was ill. And he made a point of acknowledging all of those people, all those things. And he gave people a sense of belonging. Now, he was very clear he was in charge, but he gave people a very great sense of belonging, of being respected, of being engaged in the process. And again, it's very much, it comes back to that whole thing about relationship building. And if we're genuinely and constructively and with awareness building relationship, who knows what potential we can create for the future.
Yeah, beautifully said. So when I began this series in March of 2020, it was a direct result of COVID crashing into my 30 years of producing meetings, live meetings, across the US and Latin America and Canada and in Europe. I'm getting ready to go back into that now with some trepidation, I might add. And because I'm certainly older, but still in good health, thank God. But I think the world has changed. I think people have changed in general, just what people expect. And I've worked really hard to build this global meeting room, Zoom. And I thank you for that analysis and praise. I believe that is what it takes to run any meeting, not just on Zoom. Zoom is really difficult for many people. And that's probably why I haven't become a millionaire doing this because there's just not a market out there for people who want to pay me for what I'm doing. Mostly, I believe, because, and I'm not complaining, I'm just using an example of I really love what I'm doing, and I'm learning from this experience every show. And then the display, the redisplaying of this program as, for instance, I used the Golden Bridge video that you produced. So you spoke as so beautifully. I've used that as a sample of what to expect when they come into the global meeting room. And I also use the program that I was fortunate to produce with the AI product owner of ADP Corporation. That one has hit an all-time high of re-watchers. In other words, people seeing it more than once, according to LinkedIn. There's so many other shows that other people like. And hearing what you three have been talking about this morning in this unrehearsed, unscripted, but well-organized program, I think is a learning experience for anybody out there who is camera shy and is insecure about what mask do I portray, if any. But there is a mask because people think that they have to appear a certain way. I want to quickly just summarize here that according to LinkedIn, more than half of our, and I'm stroking my chin here, more than half of our audience, viewing audience, are female. It's unclear how much more than half, but far more women watch than are appearing on the program. So they're really curious. That's what I'm learning from that. They're really curious about that. And Andreea, having you involved is just absolutely a grand slam home run in using American baseball terms, because you'll be warmly appreciated by the female audience out there. Hello. And Ken, I'm talking too much, so please take over.
What you said was just beautiful and clear.
Oh,
and no, your programs, as Joseph said, bring together such interesting people that we never would have met. We might have known about them through their works, but to meet and talk with Andreea and Joseph is wonderful. I was telling my wife, and Joseph is going to be there. I'm so interested in the work that you do in the research. And at one point, maybe down the road, maybe we can talk about what you see as AI doing in this arena, because I've read articles that AI is getting into facial recognition. I go, no, I'm not buying it. And I'd love to hear what Joseph has to say, but we're at the bewitching hour right now. But I'd love your insights on that at some point down the road. And Andreas, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. So.
Okay, that's going to be a show. Do you want to do it in late February or early March? Well, we're halfway through the month now, so we could do a March thing. In fact, the International Women's Day is, I think, March 8th. Or the month of March is the month. Maybe we should hit on that topic on that day. Andreea, please come back.
I will add, and thank you. So I know we are at the top of the hour, but I mean, I just want to say once again that I'm really honored to be here, and thank you so much for bringing all of us together. I just want to close by saying that your marketing, let's say, campaign of saying that this is a safe space is not just the marketing motto, but it's really how it feels. So thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for all the insights that I've learned today from Joseph and from Ken. It was a lovely conversation.
Ken, what is hot for your business? What are you working on that you can divulge that people can learn from or know about you?
Was that addressed to Andrea? Or?
Ken.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, still doing executive coaching and working on a management book to help managers clear some of the clutter out of their minds and make more effective and productive decisions and actually be a little bit happier in their work and even in their life. So that's what I'm working on right now, along with some other related projects.
Joseph, back to you as we come to a close here. I was honored to have you be an award, communicator award winner, and now we know exactly why. Everybody, this has really been a wonderful program. Many people don't know anything about negotiation other than what they fear, fear of being made a fool, or thinking that, wait, that's not me. Here's me. And, then that looks even worse, right? When people do that kind of a switch. Sum up, and let's take us to goodbye.
Sure. Okay. Well, firstly, again, thank you so much, Ed. It's always such a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here, to be asked, and to meet such wonderful people. Yeah, I can't overstate that. And I don't say nice things for the sake of it. I think you know me well enough at this point, so I just like to keep it real. Um, yeah, I get that many people are nervous about negotiation, and even people who are highly experienced in business can be very fearful and trepidation going into a negotiation. So a big part of it is preparation, but it's not just technical preparation, it's internal preparation. And that's the area I work with, but helping them to recognize how they're perceived and how they're coming across, but also to identify more of their inner strengths, bring them out, but also then to help them with reading the room, and not just in terms of, oh, we want to win, but winning as a collective, winning in terms of relationship building, so that again, you're not just looking at now, you're looking to gain for the future and expand the pie. Very, very simple. And when we do that, when we're thinking in terms of that kind of cohesion and collaboration, we're talking about really building community. And building community has never been more important than now.
It's all about trust. And I've learned so much from one of my customers, Ron Cooper, and his wife, Marty Cooper, all about trust in the workplace. They together as a unit talk about it in great detail. It's been a great education for me, and I think for the people who watch that. So more about all this another time. Thank you. I'll be working on doing some brief editing and get the program links back to you all later in my day today.
Thank you.
Thanks, all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be well all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.